goddamn right. We're going to start in just 2 minutes, goddammit. 2 minutes away from all the news of the goddamn day. Think about that. Think about that. You get all the data you need right here, baby. Dahama, you just fucking wait. You just fucking have some discipline for once in your fucking life. It's like your father and I always tell you. I would never spoil Loki, buddy. I'm not doing that. Well, there we go, fellas. How are you? And Filetti's, welcome to Gavin Games for whatever today is. I think it's the 14th of July, the month. Well, the month to me is flying by. I don't know how old you guys are and ladies are, but the older you get, the faster time goes. I think I have a theory about that, actually, but we'll talk about it later if you're interested. Now, listen, Nawdog is in the chat. I think, are you full of shit? We got a lot to cover today. We got a lot of stuff going on in the wonderful game world, but Nawdog is in the chat telling people that Microsoft is supposed to announce. I think this is one of those NeoGAF rumors that never comes to fruition. Either that or you're fucking with people. No, that's bullshit. Microsoft bought Warner Brothers and NetherRealm. Okay, well, there's no goddamn way they bought Warner Brothers. They might have bought NetherRealm, but I don't believe that that's an actual fucking real thing. I'm sorry, I don't believe it. But anyway, hey, we'll see. We'll fucking see. No, I don't think that's. I mean, now again, maybe NetherRealm, but Warner Brothers keeps going on saying, no, that's not accurate. We're not looking to sell NetherRealm, so we'll have to see. But hey, man, if you've got a link to something reputable, that suggests what you're saying, Nawdog, is true, please send it to me. I want to talk about it. I want to hear about it. That's exciting. Drive-By Joe drops first super chat of the day. It's not even a super chat, it's a super sticker, and I appreciate it, buddy. It's very, very generous. Number one fan, he says. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that, Drive-By Joe. Let me tell you something real quick about these stickers. I wish to God that YouTube would let us do custom stickers. I would love to go out and get a great artist like Andrea Daly, who did a bunch of the stuff for Drawn to Death, and she's worked on a lot of other things. That's just really cool. I would love to get like 5-10 custom stickers for that stuff, but it is what it is. They're not letting us do that yet, but hopefully they will in the future. But anyway, yeah, Nawdog, look, man, if you have data like that, let me know. What the fuck, Jaffe, is that stick? That's the pipe, baby. That's the Gandalfian pipe. It's custom. See that? It's got Sweet Tooth on it, and it says Jaffe. And let me tell you something. Anytime we get new members, until we get the new stuff coming next week, where we have all the flash on the screen again, everybody gets a little poke of the little puff of the pipe. Hello, Brian Farid. It's good to see you, Pat. Now, listen, let's jump right into some news in the world of games and some hot topics in the world of games, and we'll discuss what is happening out there, because there's some neat stuff. Now, the first thing's not really. I mean, no one should be surprised by this. This breaks today and gets immediately deleted. Now, This is the actor who played Miles Morales in Spider-Man, the original, and Spider-Man Miles Morales from Insomniac. This guy, I don't honestly know what his name is. I'm sorry, but his performance has been praised. I want to say, I know he was nominated for an award, like the Game Awards for Best Performance. He may have actually won it, but I know he was nominated. But here he is on the set. I think this was yesterday, saying that, hey, we're doing this shit, right? So people are assuming this is Spider-Man 2. He took it down real quick, obviously. I don't think he knew, and his agent probably called and said, I have fucking Sony on the phone right now, and they're pissed as shit. Or maybe he was taking the piss. Who knows? But the point is, there you go. No one's surprised. Spider-Man 2. The rumors online are that Spider-Man 2 is going to be Peter Parker and Miles Morales together, and that it's going to be... And well, that's the rumor. That's the official rumor. Then I've seen people speculating that it might also be kind of like Grand Theft Auto, where you're able to change between the stories, but they kind of marble in and out. So we'll see. Hello, Music Nerd. Welcome back to the fold, sir. Good to see you. But yeah, looking forward to it. Insomniac makes great games. I will be playing Miles Morales probably in the next week, because I had put off on that because I was kind of tired of Spider-Man, because I obsessed on it when it came out. Now I'm excited to get to it on my PS5. There you go. Let's get into some real heavy news. That ain't news so much as like, yeah, you're making a Spider-Man 2. I can't fathom. I don't understand it. Let me just also tell you something real quick, and I will never spoil shit for you, at least intentionally. But if you didn't see Loki yet, whoo, Lord have mercy. This is what I will say, and this is not spoiling anything, I promise. I'm not even dancing around it. Let me just say, and I know this is mostly about video games, but let me just fucking say that, you know, the Netflix shows were great. I know some people liked Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I could never really get into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but this is unprecedented. What if you look at WandaVision and Loki and Winter Soldier and Falcon, it's not, these aren't the little brothers of the MCU. This is like if you're a comic book reader and every month you get new issues and the story just never stops. What was happening all throughout Captain America and Loki and WandaVision, and specifically the finale of Loki last night, there's no sense that this is television versus movies. It is just storytelling, and you happen to be getting it first on your TV screen versus the motion picture show house. It is amazing. It is unprecedented, and somebody needs to give Kevin Feige and his band of merry men and ladies a shit ton of money if they don't already have it, and a bunch of fucking awards, because I've never seen anything like this in my goddamn life. Yeah, I am too, Joe. Looking forward to What If, for sure. Okay, let's get into video game news. This was sort of the big thing today, which is the topic of the stream. I know that Delta variant's going around. I hope I'm not getting it. I'm vaccinated, so they say you won't go to the hospital probably. Whatever. Okay. Yeah, Sinzaro says, just real quick back to Marvel, it's TV setting up the movies really nicely. Artie says, is there any order to watch other than to watch other shows before Loki? I don't think so. I think that there's value in watching them in order just because there's a little bit of continuity, but nothing in a meaningful way that would stop you from watching Falcon and Winter Soldier first. I think you should watch WandaVision first, because I think most people agree that is the best of the three in terms of just moment-to-moment television. If you can get past the first couple of episodes, which are great, but you have to kind of have a history of television to really appreciate what they're doing. If you're like 23 and you're watching the first two episodes, you're like, what the fuck am I watching? It might be a little weird. Muscle Nerd, I didn't think there was a post-credit scene of Loki. I know at the end there was just text, and this is not a spoiler. This is all over the news. It just said, you know, Loki will return in season 2. They've basically announced that, season 2, but that's the only thing I knew. Okay, so Stadia came out yesterday. And they basically, and this is not the news, but the main thing, they came out and they're like, hey, we're going to be giving devs a bigger cut of Stadia Pro revenue, and we're going to give people incentive to join Stadia Pro. And that was certainly enough because I used to be on Stadia and I owned Cyberpunk on Stadia, which we'll talk about in a little bit in terms of Cyberpunk. And I was like, well, let me go back over there because they must have done a lot of work. Because when I was just getting out of Stadia, because the streaming was great for me, but there wasn't enough content that was interesting enough. And I was like, fuck it, I'll just be doing Luna on Amazon and xCloud and all that. Well, I went over there and Stadia Pro is still kind of like, there's really not much to write home about. But the interesting thing is this line here, okay? So devs are being paid based on playtime is the true horror of the subscription-based future. This is a guy named Ryan Brown, who I think is he does PR for a company called Super Rare Games that I don't know what they do. Physical video games for Nintendo Switch. Maybe they're like limited run games or whatever. He says devs being paid based on playtime is the true horror of the subscription-based future. It is the death of creativity, of shorter experiences. I hate this with every fiber of my being. And then the Digital Foundry guy, John Linneman, says, I concur, good Sir Ryan Brown, and this isn't just about Stadia. Engagement as a primary metric for success is a direction that concerns me for the reasons stated here and more. Let's hope this doesn't become the norm. Okay, so let me be clear, right? So a lot of people know that I have been and remain a big fan and a big supporter of Game Pass, of subscription-based game services, because so far the experiences with them have been, for me anyway, have been wonderful. Okay, in the sense that like I literally just finished Desperados. I rarely finish games. I would never have played Desperados. That's a one and done game. There's like a little DLC if you want it, which I'm not going to buy because I'm over it, but I love that game. I'm playing Doom Eternal on it, and I'm also playing Nier Automata. I'm playing, which I was always aware of, but now I'm like, oh, it's there. Fuck it, I'll play it. Right. I have always said that the need for companies to support games that do not make people churn out is crucial. Obviously, you see it with Netflix, HBO Max, all that stuff. People subscribe to watch Kong and Mortal Kombat, and then they unsubscribe until 6 months later when there's some DCU movie or whatever. Right? I get it. I understand it. But I've always said that, to me, what Microsoft is trying to do with Xbox Game Pass is enough frequent content. Like, if you throw in their first party and the day one indie games and some of the third party exclusive day ones, they're dropping one or two titles, meaningful, meaty titles every month, right? I'm hoping that is what they continue to do. But yes, what I say in the headline of this is not clickbait. It's not hyperbolic. It's if Stadia is indicative of the way that Game Pass is going to go, PS Now is going to go, then yeah, I agree with all the people who have been, and I've said this, I guarantee you cannot go back and find anybody saying, ha ha, Jaffe, I told you. Anytime this came up, I would say, well, yeah, they would say that these services are going to become a wasteland of free-to-play, microtransactions, service-based games. And I would say, okay, if that's the case, then that's bad, and I would not play it, and I don't think you would find it anywhere near as successful. And if it becomes successful, then don't blame me. That's what gamers clearly want because they're voting with their goddamn wallets, okay? But that's not what Game Pass is right now, and that's certainly not what Luna is right now. That's not what the Ubisoft channel is right now on Luna or a number of different services. And so if it becomes that, though, sure. Then I think this, it's not that Stadia, like Phil Harrison went over to Phil Spencer and was like, I'm going to kill your service. But if this is indicative of the way these services, if Stadia has reached a conclusion that says, this is the way we can do it, this is the way we can sustain it, is by making the games never ending, then yeah. And we're going to pay developers based on engagement, which means a game like Little Nightmares 2 would not get funded by Microsoft for a service like that. Or now, in a little bit, we'll talk about what Matt Booty, who runs the games division, said about this. But that's kind of the big the big kind of takeaway there, which is like, yeah, this is pretty shitty if this is indicative. Ubisoft just mentioned Assassin's Creed will be a games as a service. How do you not see the future? Well, again, that is not currently the bread and butter of these services. Ubisoft putting Assassin's Creed as a service, Activision putting Warzone and Call of Duty as a service. No one is surprised. No one is denying that a lot of these third-party companies especially are going down that road because they're making, and I'm not exaggerating, they're making billions. They're making billions of dollars. Okay, that's different though. Everybody knows service-based games is happening with these big titles. Okay, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if you look at Game Pass today, if you look at the indie games and the first-party games that have been promised that will be coming, like whether it's, Psychonauts, which Matt Booty did say today is not a service-based game. There's no 5-year plan. Schaefer's going to move on to something else after this, right? If you look at The Ascent, which is coming into this month or next month, if you look at a number of these games, that's not what they're doing. So it's important, to understand that you can love, or I can, certainly, I have no problem loving Game Pass today, because what Game Pass today is not what it might be tomorrow. It's very, it reminds me of G4. When G4 first launched, I don't know if you guys remember this, when G4 first launched, coming out of Tech TV, it was very geek-centric. It was very game-centric. They had like a Will Wheaton show, and they had X-Play. Was it called X-Play, the Sessler and Morgan Webb show? Attack of the Show came on a little bit later. Then after a while, they started running Ninja Warrior, and they started running Cops, and they really it became something different in order for them to monetize more, and it collapsed. It was shit. Now maybe it wasn't sustainable to begin with, but yeah, if Game Pass becomes that, sure, but that is not what it is right now. Sod Khan says, despite the resounding success of Avengers, other publishers are still going all in on live service because they know if it hits, it's a gold mine. Right. I'm not suggesting that it's not a bright, shiny object for these guys to go chasing. Aaron says, how do you think it starts? Of course, it's not happening today. And once games reach the threshold, there's no going back. No, and then he says, thanks Game Pass users. That's an absolute ridiculous thing to lay at the feet of people who are currently enjoying a service that is not anywhere close to what you are assuming, right? And the idea that a service has to be that, it's like, look, a lot of things change and they fail because they've changed. Coke changed the formula of Coke, and they changed it right back, right? Because it was like, this isn't working. What was it? Movie Pass came out, and everybody loved it, but it wasn't sustainable, so it collapsed. But they tried to change it, but it was too late because what they changed it into wasn't appealing as what it was originally. So this idea that you're going to blame people who like Game Pass now, blame me all you want, but you're a moron if you're not playing Game Pass and enjoying it. If you don't, assuming you like the games that are on it, but there's a lot of great games on it, and the value of it is insane, and everybody knows that. Everybody knows. You can pretend, you can front and pretend that it's not, but most people would disagree with you. But yeah, if it becomes this, it's going to be a real problem, and I think they're gonna get their ass handed to them. They're gonna get their ass handed to them. From Microsoft's point of view, the best Game Pass games are finite, says Jay. You are better off purchasing never-ending games outright than playing. I don't understand. Are you saying are infinite or finite? I don't know. I don't know if that comment makes any sense. Timmy Clark says people who use Game Pass don't understand that they're not enjoying it. Right. I guess that's the case. Yeah. So. Yeah, I'm not going to get into a Game Pass debate with you guys. You know where I stand on this. I think it's a phenomenal service. I use it all the time. I love it. A lot of people love it. I think it's going to change the industry. But if it does go this route that Stadia is going, then they pretty much should pack it in. Right? Because Artie is right. Artie says Although he deleted it, but the gist of it is that the customer has the power. So look, man, if the customers come a calling for this shit after Game Pass becomes this shit, if it becomes like Stadia, then fuck that shit, right? Then don't blame Microsoft. That's like blaming 2K or EA for doing the FIFA cards. It's like, man, they're making billions of dollars. It does billions of goddamn dollars. Ryan Brown's a terrible journalist, says Rathy, but he's not wrong about this. Well, he's not saying anything yet. He's basically, the sky is falling. I mean, trust me, no one's going to lament or be sad about the fact, for the most part, that Stadia goes out of business or gets played less, right? So the idea that this is the day he feared, I think is incorrect. I think the day he fears is if this poison spreads to the other subservices. In fact, let's just jump to Microsoft. This is going to be a little bit later, but let's just jump to what Mateus Booty said. Yes, that's his name. I don't know what you want me to do. His last name is Booty, though. His first name is not Booty. Come on now. Don't give the man a hard time. We're talking about his first name. His first name is Matthew. That's a good, healthy name. Come on now. Okay, so here's what he has to say, though. It's not directly related. There's two reasons I bring this up. He says, this was yesterday. He says, Microsoft does not force its studios to develop sequels for its games. So there's 2 points I have on this. The first one is, well, and I don't mean to be a dick. You guys know I love Game Pass. You know I'm excited about some of the first-party stuff. But it's like, of course you're not forcing your studios to develop sequels for games, because you have to release games to want sequels, and you have to release games that do hits. No one's clamoring for Battletoads 2, and I liked Battletoads 2, right? So it doesn't really sound as it's not like when Shuhei used to say, and I always thought Shuhei was insane in this respect. Shuhei was constantly saying stuff like, well, if the team doesn't want to do it, we don't want to force them to do something they don't want to do. And part of me was like, well, I get that. But, look, man, that's not always true anyway. The team wanted to put God of War Part 2, the original God of War Part 2, on PS3. And she was like, no, it's bad business. It's absolutely bad business. We got to get it out on PS2, right? Well, but more often than not, Sony first party would just, torpedo great business opportunities. Like, they could have had a God of War on PlayStation Move. Can you imagine being Kratos and having the ability in first person or even third, but first person probably, to swing the blades of chaos using the Move controllers? That would have been a system seller or a peripheral seller, the likes of which we've not seen in the peripheral market, right? And I asked him about that. And he says, well, yeah, but the team's worried that the visual fidelity of that wouldn't live up to the expectations that they've set from the other God of Wars. And I'm like, who gives a shit? It's not going to be an ugly game. We know it's not going to be a fucking ugly game. But yes, it won't look as good as the original God of Wars because, if for no other reason, the camera's not fixed. So it's first person. You can rotate all over the goddamn place. They could have sold a shit ton of copies, but they didn't, right? But what Matt is saying is a little hard to swallow, only because it's like, well, you do make sequels to Halo. You do make sequels to Forza. Don't tell me if Forza, the new Forza Horizon that comes out this year is a smash hit, and those guys come to you and say, we would like to do a trivia game. You're going to go, okay, come on now. Don't be a moron, Matthew. We're not idiots, right? But that said, though, as it relates to what we were talking about with Stadia and requiring games to be more engaging in terms of long play, which is really ironic because the most engaging games, not all, but there are a lot of engagement comes from novelty. And novelty only lasts so long. And then you end up with Fall Guys, right? Fall Guys was super engaging for about 3 weeks. And yes, it's a service-based game, but I don't know many people online that are talking about Season 5 that was just announced because people are over it, right? So I'd rather have a 2-day, shot of adrenaline to the gamer heart of engagement, and then it's just gone. I never play it again versus, this slow drip bullshit. But anyway, this talks about Psychonauts. Matt Booty says, He says, take Psychonauts, fellas. There might be a Psychonauts 3, but I'm not going to tell Tim Schafer to go make it, Booty says. Knowing the history of games that he makes, I don't think he's going to be making the game that has seasons and goes on for 5 years. Yeah, okay. And let's hope when it comes to Game Pass, though, that is accurate. I will also point out, though, that this thing from Sirius Gaming is a little annoying because it says, and that's just how it should be. Freedom to do what is best for their games and not forced to do so. Okay, yeah, okay, man. That is, I guess, how it should be. But, you know, again, these companies are making these games based on what sells. And you're reviewing these games based on sometimes hype and based on budgets and production value and all of this shit. So don't act like, I mean, I don't know Sirius. Maybe they're like rock, paper, shotgun. But if you're a normal games journalist, don't act like, yeah, I fight the good fight every day for games to only be what the creator wants. It's like, if you do that, that's fine. But more often than not, most game journalist actions do not match that in terms of how they carry themselves and do their reporting. They clearly are in the back pockets, not financially, but in terms of they're incentivized to bang the drum for these big companies that are selling the sequels and the service-based games and the microtransactions. So don't sit here and act like you've got a seat in the upper echelon of the fucking high ground, because you don't. Unless, of course, Sirius is a very different kind of company. I don't know. All right. Or a different kind of website, I guess I should say. All Forces look and play amazing, says DDP. Doesn't move the needle. It's just a race car game. That's true, but they're good. They are good. Yeah, Brutal Legend 2, Naughty Dog. I saw somebody speculating that if Psychonauts does well, in fact, they may have even said that, if Psychonauts does really well, that they will look seriously into a Brutal Legends 2, but I'm not entirely sure. God of War move, hell no, you tweaking. I don't know what that means, Koopa Clips. Are you saying you wouldn't want that? Well, you may not want that, but I absolutely guarantee you that a lot of people would have bought it and enjoyed it. Hello, Wolfblood. Eric says, Jaffe, do you agree with Colin when it comes to reviewers? No. Yes and no. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. Okay. Let us move on. I only want to talk about this because I get asked about this sometimes. When it comes to PlayStation All-Stars. So I just wanted to talk about this real quick. As you may or may not know, yesterday, Nickelodeon announces All-Star Brawl, which is basically Smash Bros, but with the Nickelodeon characters, or at least some of the Nickelodeon characters. I saw today that who's the Airbender lady, Kiara, whatever her name is, that she's rumored to be in it because she looks like she's on the box art and shit like that. So great. If you grew up with these shows, it's exciting, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to cast aspersions on the developer. Here's the people who've been announced that are coming out with this shit. But what's interesting about this, though, the publisher and the developer, and I've had engagements with them online. They've sent me codes. They're nice people. I like them a lot. But they're not really known for great quality. Like, I played their Cobra Kai game, which was not... What I liked about Cobra Kai was there was a lot of creativity, and there were some smart designers working on it. But obviously, whether it was the amount of time they had or the execution ability or management, it wasn't very good in terms of, if you're not looking at it from that's an interesting design choice, right? Compare the fighting in that game to the fighting even in the Space Jam free Xbox game from Digital Eclipse that came out a couple days ago, and it's coming out for everybody if you don't have Game Pass on Xbox. I think maybe today or this week. But the fighting in the Space Jam game it's great. I mean, it's not like Streets of Rage 4, but it's very satisfying. The punches feel great. The hit volumes feel great. It's very tight. Cobra Kai was an absolute sloppy fucking mess, but it did have some good design ideas. G.I. Joe is obviously not a very good game, I almost bought it because I like the license that much. And I'm like, fuck it, I'm not doing it. I've watched gameplay, it's terrible, right? So my guess is this is not going to be some massive fucking hit. This is going to be a game for the little kids. It's going to sell on the license, and you're not going to hear much about it. It got a lot of press yesterday because I know the characters are beloved, but I would be stunned if this thing actually is a real contender. But I mean, you never know. You never know. Everybody has, Every new project is a chance to sort of hit a home run. So I wish them well. It's a cool idea. I grew up on much older Nickelodeon. So these characters do nothing for me. But I grew up when Nickelodeon was brand fucking new. If I said this, only maybe 2 people who watched the stream based on analytics would know who the fuck I was talking about, right? Why is there a fighting in a Space Jam game? I don't fucking know, V8 Supercar. All I can tell you is it's really fun. Everything you heard about Space Jam is bad, Bukaki. You mean the movie or the game? The game is fun. The game is satisfying. I mean, it's basic, but it's for what it is. It's fun. But anyway, it goes back to this. I get asked a lot about. PlayStation All-Stars, partially because I was there when they made it. It was an idea that I pitched to Shannon, and Corey totally separately pitched to Shannon. I mean, it's not like a brilliant idea. Everybody is like, well, of course you should do a Smash Bros. Ripoff with the PlayStation characters. Even though the Metacritic score isn't brilliant, it's sitting at a 74. This is a game that did sell over 1 million copies. It had its fans for sure. And so I started wondering, it's like, why in the world, because people ask me all the time, is there going to be a sequel? Why would there not be a sequel? And at first I was thinking, well, maybe it's because Smash Bros. Does so well. Because yes, it's got the tournament group and all that. But honestly, it's, my kids, they're friends when the first one on Switch came out, or the one on Switch came out. They were like 9 or 10 or whatever, and they were playing it. They're not gamers at all in terms of core gamers. But everybody loves the characters. Everybody knows the characters. Parents get it because they came up with Mario for their kids and all that shit. So I was like, maybe it sells younger. So I did a little research because I was curious. Maybe that's why Sony looks at this and says, we can only sell to our core market. And our core market, who's like 20 plus, they like games like this, but this doesn't really scratch the itch. I don't fucking know, right? Well, Nintendo released some stats about who plays their games. Now, the majority of people who do play Smash are kind of core gamers. They're basically 20 to 29-year-old male. Almost half is 20, 29-year-old male. And all the other categories get filled in between 10 and 39 years. So these are, and they're male. And these are gamers. 80% are fucking male, right? So it's not an accurate guess that this game is primarily selling to a bunch of young kids. And at that point, you have to wonder, then why won't Sony... The only thing I can tell you, the only insight I can tell you would be this, is that I know from being around at the time that there was an expectation of more characters on the part of Sony. And the developer, which was a brand new developer, and this was a very hard game for them to make, and they brought in a bunch of great talent from the fighting game community. The game may have been too hardcore. It may have needed a more shallow end of the pool to appeal to just casuals and semi-casuals. That may have been what hurt it as well. But the characters cost a lot more money. Like, I think Sony was hoping to get characters for, I'm just throwing this figure out, a brand new character would cost $300,000. And that made sense to then go online and sell that character for $9.99. My understanding is these characters on a per character basis were costing upwards of $1 million for one character. And so they just couldn't sustain anything beyond the core game and then the original DLC that they had planned. And so how much of it was that? How much of it was the nightmare of getting all the licenses? I have no idea. But assuming that marketing doesn't look at this and say, this is a drain because we don't have an audience that wants this, assuming that's not the case, and it doesn't seem like that's the case, this seems like a fucking cash cow, just waiting to be milked. I don't know why Sony doesn't. Different developer, that developer, Giant Robot, I think they were called, they're gone. I might have the guy who ran that studio, great guy named Chan Park, come on the show pretty soon and talk with us. But yeah, they're not in business anymore, and so they would have to give it to someone else. Now, somebody in the chat, where did it go? Because I thought this was an interesting idea. They were suggesting that it was AR Game says, I would like to see a sequel go Power Stone style rather than Smash. Yeah, I mean, either one. I love Power Stone, and I think that would be a great differentiator for sure. But yeah, I think it would be fantastic. Does the Stadia developer relation sound like a good deal to you, says Jimmy Gilchrist? You're talking about sort of where it is right now, what they were proposing yesterday. I'll answer that at the end because I want to move on to this story. But overall, though, as a developer, if you make service-based games, it's great. But if you want to make, small narrative story-based games, it sounds awful. So this game's downfall was it had a life bar instead of a percentage-based knockback. Well, there was absolutely that. There was the fact that the way it was almost like it was over-designed. Like they had some really good fighting tournament people on this thing, right? This was, but they did take, in my opinion, they took the eye off the ball regarding making it accessible to people who weren't going to Evo and shit like that, right? And so I agree with you. It was kind of confusing. I didn't know what I needed to do to win. Smash Bros, if you remember, was originally confusing. People were just like, why is the number going up when I'm hurting him? Like, it took a while for people to just get comfortable with a different kind of way to kill someone in a fighting game, given that we had over, probably at the time, maybe a decade or two, where you had these life bars that as you knocked the enemy down to nothing into the red, they were dead. So now they're introducing another one, and in a lot of PlayStation fans didn't play Smash Bros. So they're like, what the fuck is this? So I agree. I absolutely agree. PlayStation Cart, says Hogwash. Yeah, you goddamn right. I mean, look, you can't copyright, at least, we'll get into something in a minute, but you can't copyright a design at that level. I agree. There should be, they should go out and not spend tons of money, and they should do PlayStation Racing and PlayStation All-Stars. They did that kart game. Again, there is a point, fellas and Filettis, there is a point where yes, you have to be, and again, I don't know how much of what Matt Booty is saying is lip service, but yes, you absolutely have to be cognizant of what the teams want to do, right? You have to do that. That is crucial. But there's a point where you're just like, really? We're not going to go out. Like, remember when the game came out, not great, not as good as Mario Kart, but good. It was the racing game with all the customization for PS3. What was that fucking thing called? There was Little Big Planet, but there was one before that they had. That was, what was that goddamn thing called? It was like the vinyl characters, whatever. Mod Nation Racing. There you go. Why the fuck that was Mod Nation Racing and it was not PlayStation Racing? I have no idea. That game would have flown off the fucking shelves if they had done Mod Nation and said, look, it's great you want to customize everything. Give me a track maker, sure. But why in the fuck do we need to have these characters nobody's ever heard of before just because you can customize them? No. All-Stars was GoBots like Smash's Transformers. Good point. It's a very good point. Insomniac would make a great PlayStation kart racer, says Aaron. Insomniac pretty much would make a great anything. They've got it down over there. Okay. Let us move on. But that's what was happening. That's why it kind of struck me, because I get asked about that a lot. This is why, by the way, in terms of sort of what sells and this idea of 80% of people who play Smash are men and most of them are, 10 to 39. This is why that something does have to give. And I don't like the way Stadia is proposing it gives. But you might remember a couple of weeks ago I had Sohrab Asadi on, a buddy of mine who's also a game journalist. He ran Sony Rumors. He now currently runs his own blog about technology and whatnot. Great interview, great conversation. The second part of his piece is up. I'll put it in the chat for you right now if you're interested. It's a really good read. But I want to show you some stats that he has. It's titled "Why Cloud Gaming Will Not Save the Industry," and this is part 2. Okay. So what's interesting about this, though, his whole theory is not even his theory; it's Sean Layton's theory. But he basically breaks down. The theory is that the pie isn't really growing for the most part regarding console gamers. Okay. And he breaks down PS1 generation. So he's like, there were 144 million consumers of console games or consoles back in that generation. And obviously PS1 had the lion's share. Then as we go to PS2, it grew a little bit, 220 million. All right, that's 80 million growth. We're on the track, babies. Then we go to PS3, 275. This just keeps getting better and better and better, right? But then it starts to stall out. And it starts to stall out. We dropped basically 100 million gamers. Now, part of it was the Wii, but this is an important part. This is an important part, right? The Wii was huge. It accounted for 100 million, right? Well, most of the people who bought and played the Wii were not the people who were really serious about PS3 and Xbox, right? So this slice of the pie represents, or at least a meaningful percentage of this percentage, represents the kind of gamer that is probably did move over to, cell phone gaming and iPad gaming and still playing games on Facebook and shit like that. Because if you look, there's about 100 million people who washed out. And that kind of makes sense. That kind of tracks when you think about there were Wii people who had a Wii like me and probably some of you guys that were hardcore that wanted it to play Smash and wanted it to play Zelda and all that shit. But most of them were like, oh, we got it for the sports game and let's buy a Disney Princess game and all that shit. Okay, so now we're back to 180, right? So we're kind of back in this land here. And now, obviously, it's too early to write the obituary on this shit. But now we're at about 98 million. But his whole theory is, and this is coming from Sean Layden, is that this pie is not getting bigger. It hasn't been big since this. And this was because of the Wii. It really has never been bigger than 220 million. But the budgets keep going up and going up and going up, right? And so I do think this I'm going to read you the Sean Layden quote. He says, and again, this is a good thing to read though, but he's talking about, where did it go? The industry, this is Sean Layden talking. The industry as a whole needs to sit back and think, what are we building? What's the audience expectation? What are the best ways to get our stories across to say what we need to say? That's going to cause the industry to look at the kind of games we're doing, where we go from there, and what we're putting into them. It's hard for every adventure game to shoot for 50 to 60 hours. That's going to be so much more expensive to achieve. In the end, you may close some interesting creators and their stories out of the market if that's a threshold you have to meet. If you don't have 50 hours of gameplay, you don't have a game. We need to reevaluate that shibboleth, I think. And if you don't know what shibboleth is, go watch The West Wing. Without investing new game worlds and game mechanics that don't only cater to existing console owners, meaning we need to get new people in, even if we solve the controller problem, each new game does little to attract non-gamers, right? So it's a really really good point. And I think gamers would be wise to kind of, again, it doesn't matter. You have a right as a customer to demand what you want to demand. And if you're like, motherfucker, I only care about this, I don't give a fuck about any of this, that's okay. But don't be surprised then when you start reading news stories, kind of like what we saw earlier with Stadia. Don't be surprised when you start seeing news stories about, gamers or game companies doing more service-based games or microtransactions, or there not being as many AAA games, right? Because the budgets are going up, but the pie is not getting any bigger. That's not news, but the way that this is broken down in this article and the way it's visualized, at least for a visual thinker like me, that's pretty good to see. Non-gamers, says DDP, are not going to pay 10 to 15 bucks a month to play Candy Crush games. No, they may not, and that's fine. But they are, actually, you know what? I think you're kind of wrong on that. The amount of money mobile makes on microtransactions is massive, and it absolutely dwarfs console. So I don't know if they're paying 15 bucks a month for Candy Crush, but they're paying a lot of fucking money, more than you guys are paying if all you play and pay is console games. But ultimately, though, all you have to do is look at this and go, well, this is interesting. Let's say we split the difference. Let's say the pie is bigger than this, not as big as this. Let's say it's 220 million. Let's go to the PS2 Grand Era. It never gets any bigger than 220 million. But the budgets keep going up and going up and going up. I mean, it's only going to sustain for so long, fellas. We have to have the best graphics and production value. Okay, not a problem. We'll raise the prices. Well, we don't want the prices raised. Oh, okay, well then we'll simplify the games, or we'll add a service or whatever to get people who aren't hardcore in, because we have to grow the pie. Well, we don't want that. Okay, so what you want is the games keep getting better and better, which means more expensive. You don't want to make concessions to the game so they grow the pie. Something's got to give. Something's got to goddamn give. That's all I'm fucking saying. All right, agree or you can't even disagree with it. You have to just be okay with it. You have to be okay with the fact that you're living in a golden age of video games, and when in 10 years in the future, you'll look back like I look back at the arcade days and go, that was something we had. Wasn't that something we had, fellas? Wasn't that something we had, boys? That was awesome. And you would be right. But to act like this is not a canary in a coal mine, to act like this is not a real threat to the hobby that we all love so much, come on now. Mathematically, I'm not a good fella at math, but goodness gracious. And Andy Lee is saying, wow, to JoJo D. JoJo D says Candy Crush made $740 million in 2019. Joe, look up how much, not Roblox. There's a game, something about, let's put it this way. There are games in mobile, that's nothing anymore. $740 million is nothing. There are games that are making, a lot more. I'm trying to think of the one that is from the guy. It might be from Tencent, which is just absolutely blowing your fucking mind. Blowing your fucking mind in terms of how much they made. Giovanni says, I've never played a game on a phone and I don't plan to. Well, again, Giovanni, I mean, that's a real problem for you, okay? I mean, that's no offense, sir, but that's dumb. If you love games, that's dumb. I understand if what you're saying is I don't want to play free-to-play games. Yeah, I can get that. Some of them are okay, but most of them are just cash grabs and they're shit. But ultimately, though, if you do something like Apple Arcade or if you buy a game, like to sit there and say that a game like Angry Birds or to say that a game like some of the games on Apple Arcade like Grindstone, which is now on Switch, is not a worthy addition to the canon of great core video games you have a right to play whatever the fuck you want, and I support that, but it's kind of an ignorant statement that you are really limiting yourself, no offense, from really great content. That's, Ingmar says, I think cinematic games like The Last of Us and Uncharted is a way to get more people to gaming. They could fix the stigma about games being Mario and kiddie stuff. Ingmar, 2004 called and they said hello. This is when you saw the beginnings of that, right? People know games now are that stigma that games are for kiddies. That's been obliterated ages ago. People see athletes, people see celebrities, movie directors just gushing over video games. This is no longer kids in their basement, either geeks or kids playing Mario. What this article argues, by the way, is that, and again, this is a problem. It's not the only problem, but his main argument is this is one of the big problems. And he's not wrong, right? He's not wrong. He's like, look, man, you put this in front, and that's what Tommy Tallarico is trying to solve. I don't know if he's going to actually do it, but for other reasons, but his heart's in the right place. You put this in front of your average person who doesn't really game much. Come on. Really? Really? I mean, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. They won't know what the fuck they're doing. So the government should step in and shut down all of this. Yeah. Okay. Show console units sold worldwide by year or game sales by year, not this pie chart nonsense. What's nonsense about the pie chart? The pie chart literally is telling you the number of units sold over the lifetime of that generation. If I show you that based on a year-to-year basis, it's still going to add up to these numbers. Yet Amico is a different conversation, though. Amico is a totally different conversation. I mean, I like what Tommy's trying to do, but I happen to think that I happen to think that the Holy Grail has already been found, and kids play games around the TV with their families all the time. And I think Tommy's coming at it with the Amico saying this is something that has gotten lost. And I'm like, I like that you're making a system just for that, but I don't think so. Console controllers are absolutely intimidating to a non-gaming audience, says Andy Lee. Way too many buttons, right? Fuzzy says, wait, do you really think, or is it speculated, that the controller is the barrier to entry for non-gamers? Yes, I absolutely think that. I've seen that with focus tests, but I mean, yes, I mean, think about that for a minute. Come on, man. Go to somebody in your life who's not a gamer and give them this thing. How many times have you seen people sit down and try to control a game and they're doing this? Not with there's no gyro in it, or there is, but they're not using it. They literally don't understand. And then you throw in this, all these. This presses down, there's the D-pad here. Come on, man. Hello, Dom. Good to see you, buddy. All right, let's move on, though. This is interesting. And again, if you want to debate and discuss this, we can do that. You need to put yourself in the Discord. I'll bring you onto the call in a little bit. We will. I'll come back to these topics at the end of the stream, but I would like to move forward. I just want to point this out because I think this is kind of interesting and it's weird and it's potentially problematic, but it's definitely interesting. Tencent has filed, or they've already filed it. They got permission for the patent for digital asset inheritance. Now, what you think? You know what? Let me get back to that. I'm going to get back to that. I have to address this comment. The Fury, I don't know, whatever your name is, says, Jaffe, I think sometimes you too heavily emphasize the business aspect in these discussions. Yes, it's a business, but I believe many devs want to make great games as creatives before business and money. Of course. Absolutely. Of course, which is one of the reasons I always trumpet games that think outside of the box when I trumpet games like indie games. And I still trumpet the AAA games. The only reason the business is at the forefront of my mind is because as somebody who worked in that business for over 20 years, you can't, unless you're a one-man band like Rob the Mod, who mods this stream, and goes home at night after his day job and is making exactly what he wants to make, you can't extract one from the other. It's easier to extract the creative from the business, but this shit costs money and it's costing more and more and more money. Now, I'm more than happy to have just, pure design discussions with you. I love that. And we've had those on the stream and we can continue to have those on the stream. But if you are talking about the business and how it affects the design and how it affects the creative choices, you cannot rip those things apart, unfortunately. The very nature of this chart is absolutely indicative of what's happening out on the market. This tells you what happens when a developer walks in to a studio and says, we would like anywhere from $2 to $180 million to $220 million to make our game. It's like, well, this isn't growing. I mean, I literally had a pitch with EA, I think it was EA, about 3 years ago. And it was for this game, Guardians, that you can see the pitch for it up on YouTube. And they said to me, it was just a very beginning intro meeting. So it wasn't at the very top of the company or anything. It was just like some mid-level execs, and they filter all this. And I pitched it to them, and they said, we like it. It's cool. It's different. We're only greenlighting now service-based games, unless you're going through EA partners doing the kind of, It Takes Two or any of that stuff. We're only greenlighting in our big portfolio these massive games that run forever, right? Well, that's not because the CEO of EA is like, I really like games like that. He's like, this number isn't sustainable. So you gotta have one with the other. Tencent says, look, we got ourselves a patent for digital asset inheritance, okay? Well, what that really means is Facebook and Apple kind of do this, but this is kind of taking it a step further. When you die, and I can prove to you that I'm related to you or I'm close enough to you that you've checked the boxes when you were alive. Let's say Rob the Mod bites the bullet. Is that right? Kicks the bucket. Kicks the bucket because he's having sex with this pretty lady. And she says, Rob, I want to marry you. And even though she's beautiful and the sex is great, he didn't want to get married. He has a heart attack, falls on her, dies right there. And let's say for some weird reason, Rob the Mod says, Jaffe, you get to be the guy who can run my legacy page on the Facebook. I streamed your goddamn, I modded your goddamn stream forever. You can fucking do my legacy page. Okay, well, that service is set in place. Apple has something similar. Tencent gets a patent, though, that says, no, basically, you can, right now, if I wanted to die, and if I died and I wanted to gift Rob the Mod all of my Steam games, I really couldn't do it. I could give him my password and stuff, and he could access them, but he couldn't own them. Well, Tencent is now saying, look, we're coming up with a way that doesn't just apply to video games, but everything digitally, that you will be able to will your digital property. Now, this may or may not start to have weird tentacles into, hey, if I buy a digital game and I'm still alive, if I die and you get my license, why can't I just give you my license? Why can't I just sell you my license? So, and this is China. I don't know if this would fly in America, and I don't even know about the idea of a patent. In America, I don't know if you could patent this unless it's a technology. But this doesn't sound like it's a technology so much of it's an idea, which you can't really patent, I don't think. But it is really interesting. But I do think this problem is going to be a big money-making problem that gets solved and makes people a lot of money. Because ultimately, yeah, more and more shit's going digital. Who's going to get it, man? You can have I don't have a Pornhub account, Rob the Mod. I don't have a Pornhub account. Why would I need an account? It's all free. Who in the world? Who in the world? Interesting, though. We'll see what happens. I'm always suspect when it's Tencent, though. Those guys, they freak me out a little bit. One more piece of patent news happening right now in the world. This is Sony patented, and I don't know what's special about it at a mechanics-based level or a tech-based level, but I will tell you this is exciting, okay? As a guy who has tried to run tournaments on this stream, I will be running a WWE Battlegrounds tournament very soon, and a Bomberman online tournament very soon. The idea of, and I know Sony PSN has something like this now. When we were doing Drawn to Death, they were like, hey, can you put the hooks in for our tournament system? And I guess it's kind of in there. But, it never really has seemed to be that simple. This patent talks about, this is pretty cool. And it kind of ties into EVO, which is, I think, next month, right? Which we'll probably be streaming a little bit of that. But they said, we want to find, now that Sony owns EVO, they said, we want to find creative ways alongside our fans to grow the tournament and make its events and broadcasts more fun, engaging, and more accessible than ever, right? So listen to this. This patent's kind of cool in that it makes things so fucking easy, okay? The aim of the patent is to provide tournament functionality for games that support multiplayer gameplay, but don't have the ability to host tournaments in the game, right? So it's anything, right? So let's just say that Nickelodeon brawling game we talked about earlier doesn't have that set up. Tournaments, this would sort of be a meta, kind of like the Steam, when you hit Shift Tab and it opens up the meta that sits on top of it. This would sit on top of, I guess, all of these things, all the multiplayer games. PS Network would be used to track a player's performance in a game in real time before updating the player's profile, identifying the correct qualifying players, and generating matches based on player rankings. Other people would be able to view the tournament matches online through streaming, which is huge because what sucks right now is when you want to have tournaments, you're having to consistently get games that have a spectator mode or go, okay, I'm the host, just I'm over here in the corner, don't hit me, because it's supposed to be a one-on-one thing or whatever. There's even the possibility of holding tournaments across multiple titles, which sounds great. Okay. PlayStation Tournaments was launched in 2016 on PS4. That's what we were talking about. The first tournaments gave players, you could win bundles, blah, blah, blah. This says the patent suggests the PS5 version goes a step further, letting players and developers and other third parties host their own tournaments for individual players and teams. At one end of the scale, people could set up small tournaments for their family and friends, and at the other end, it could allow event planners to run far larger tournaments with their own rules. So, I'm a fan. I'm a goddamn fan. I think it sounds goddamn great. I definitely, at least for somebody who runs a stream that likes to do game nights, that likes to watch certain games being played competitively, I think this is pretty fucking cool. Christopher Wilkinson says, I've been saying this since the PS3 days, motherfucker. Sony should run monthly tournaments where they put new and old games on sale and give away PSN money and avatars. I think it's great. the more, I think it's a great idea. I mean, the more they can bring in that kind of community around multiplayer gaming, I think is fantastic. We're going to talk about that in just a second, Bradley Wilson. He's asking about the Psychonauts invisibility. That is, in fact, that might be our next story. Let me see. That is about to be our next story. We have two more stories to rip through first, and then we will get there. Let me get to the super chat that came through when we were talking one moment. There were actually a couple. I apologize for missing them. I didn't miss them. I just didn't get to them right away. God damn it. Let me, they're on the other screen. 1 second. We got a super chat in from Jarvie Rock says, speaking of, thank you, Jarvie. He says, I'm honestly hoping this Nick All-Stars Brawl spawns a gaming tournament. I will train and join it, no joke. It might. I mean, again, this doesn't sound like it's coming out tomorrow. They were kind of in that article speculating on the fact that EVO is next month and maybe they're going to drop this news next month, but I don't think you really file a patent. I don't know how that works. I don't really have that knowledge to tell you if you build the tech first and then you patent it, because that seems like backwards. If you don't get the patent, then you're fucked, but I don't know how close they are on this. But yes, Jarvie, I agree, and thank you for the super chat. I don't know if I would compete with that game, but there are some games right now I would love to play. I would love to do a Hearthstone tournament that's just easy to set up, but Hearthstone's fucked now anyway. Boy, there's a lot of rumors about Blizzard having a hard time retaining talent these days. No surprise. Pirate of the Seven Seas super chatted. Thank you, buddy. He says, David motherfucking Jaffe. Sorry I'm late. Not a problem, sir. It's good to have you here, as always. Okay, I just wanted, this is just a little bit of news. The reason it's relevant in the bigger scheme of things, though, is that this you may have known. This was announced yesterday. Ghostwire Tokyo, which looks great. It's a PlayStation console exclusive for a year, I think. Or they haven't really announced it, but it's very similar, even though this is owned now by Microsoft. What are they called? Tango Gameworks. It's still going to be, it was originally a PlayStation exclusive, or at least timed exclusive. It's still going to be that. But they've decided because of COVID, they say, to push this to 2022. Okay, it sucks, but it is what it is. I got it. But what's interesting about it is in the article, this is what I'm curious about. It says, regarding the delay, we've been seeing more and more news like this, attributing it to COVID, blah, blah, blah. By making delays more accepted, teams can make the adventures they want without being buried under stressful working conditions. This also bodes well for the quality of day one launch titles, especially, this is the part, especially when reflecting on the missteps of Cyberpunk 2077. I don't know about that, because check this out. You may have seen this. Last month in June, Cyberpunk 2077 got released back into the PlayStation ecosystem. It was only out for 8 days, 9 days, and it jumped right to the top of the download charts in both Canada, United States, and Europe, right? So clearly, and by the way, if you buy it, if you want to go there today and buy it, this is what a notice pops up and says this. Important notice, says Sony. This comes from Sony. Users continue to experience performance issues with the game. Purchase for use in the PS4 systems is not recommended. For the best Cyberpunk experience on PlayStation, play on PS4 and PS5. So people don't really care. So I like that this reporter is suggesting that maybe things are getting better out there. Trust me. I mean, I don't trust me. I don't know. But I would assume if this game could have made 2021 with a little bit of crunch, they would have made 2021. Whether it's COVID and management, whether it's both, whether it's the ambition, who the fuck knows? I agree. I'm not saying it's a bad game, Rob, talking about Cyberpunk. I played it on Stadia and I enjoyed it for what it was. I just wasn't in the headspace to spend too much time with it. But yeah, top of the charts, even though Sony is telling you, you probably shouldn't buy this on your PS4. People are still fucking buying it. Sod says my copy of Cyberpunk is collecting dust till the PS5 version. I think that's what I'm going to kind of wait. I'm going to kind of wait for it as well. Sony is selling a game they don't recommend. That's funny, says Joe. I mean, I don't know if it was a legal thing. They're like, look, we checked all the boxes, Sony, that you said we had to check, so you have to sell it. And they're like, okay, but we're still going to be fucking honest about it. I don't know. I don't know why that is in there, but yeah, there you go. Okay. I'm just gonna, this is real quick. I just want to tell you something. Things are good, Reese. Good to see you, buddy. I'm just gonna tell you something because it fascinates me to see this laid out so bare. Okay. And then we're going to get on to the game difficulty, okay? No, we got a little bit more. We'll get to game difficulty. But so everybody knows how shitty GameStop can be. Everybody's GameStop stores, they vary. But everybody knows in part it's kind of a rough place to shop. You get your ass kicked in there. Well, there's a thread on NeoGAF, the defense for GameStop's policy to sell open or used games by an employee, okay? So this was literally, the guy just said it, and I've never heard it put this bluntly to a customer before. So this guy, Frogger, a member over on NeoGAF, says, I recently ordered a limited edition game from GameStop. When the game came, the package was open. The game was not sealed. There was clear signs of usage, light scratches on the disc, so I started a return process. And I returned the game to the local store. The employee told me that technically the game is new. No customer has used the game, I told him. Oh, no customer has used the game, period. I told him that I have heard that employees are allowed to check out the games and sell them as new. He said that customers are expecting them, meaning the employees, to have firsthand knowledge of the game, so they are doing it for the customer's benefit. And if I wanted a sealed copy, I should have pre-ordered the fucking game. They're not even lying about it at this point. They're just coming out and telling you how this is legal. I don't know. How this is a policy. I guess maybe a bunch of stupid fucking kids go in and buy it. I don't know. But it's like, and then the fact that it's like, motherfucker, I don't shop at GameStop because I'm looking. That might be something that your boss tells you to motivate the team. Like, no, the customers are really depending on your firsthand knowledge. No, they're not. No, they're not. The number of people who give a fuck about your firsthand knowledge of the game, compared to just wanting to get a new game, is minuscule. So it's no wonder that these guys are struggling to stay in business. Don't ever attack your customer like that, says Protus. Look, I don't even know if they're attacking them. I think this guy literally, you talk to a lot of these GameStop people, and they literally feel like they're doing the Lord's work sometimes. Like, it's kind of like, well, no, we're on the front lines, man. We got to help you make it. Don't fucking help me make a decision. I can figure out what I'm going to, the internet's, I got a fucking supercomputer in my pocket, motherfucker. You think I buy something at GameStop based on you? No, I go to Amazon, I go to NeoGAF, I go to Metacritic. What do people think? I don't need you to fuck some random guy behind the counter. Fuck you. Jarvie Rock says that's not a brand new game. That's the meaning of a used game. Of course. Of course. And the funniest part about it is if the publishers really felt that this was important, that the salespeople have this firsthand knowledge, then you know what? Give them some fucking codes. Give them a bunch of codes that expire after a month after the game comes out or whatever. But it's not like GameStops are so ubiquitous anymore that they could afford to buy one extra copy per store that you hand out amongst the employees. Come on. Such horse shit. Tell that guy his server is going to slurp his soup before serving it to him next time so they have better food knowledge. Right. Exactly. Yeah. All right. Let's move on. But I find that whole company just so gross. I have found it gross for so long. And I've had bad experiences. Whenever I talk about GameStop, inevitably somebody will come in and say, my GameStop's not like that. It doesn't smell like nerd sweat. It doesn't look like a pawn shop. I'm like, okay, I believe that. I believe there are some GameStops that are really nice and well run and maintained. I live in a pretty good area of town, and I can tell you that my GameStop, it shut down now, was not that. It was like walking into a pawn shop with all the stickers on everything, and you bought a game even when it was new, and it had the sticker still, the adhesive stuck to the... It's just crap. It's a crap experience. They try to sell you everything. It's awful. It's fucking awful. All right. Sega's being sued, boys and girls. What are you talking about, Jaffe? No, they're being sued. They're being sued. And I want to show you why, because I am glad they're being sued, these motherfuckers, because I have spent probably $100 when I take my kids to the goddamn motion picture show and they want to play this thing. Okay? And this is a Keymaster game. And let me just show you what it is real quick. You have to have seen these goddamn things. The Keymaster game is the one where they have these prizes. Okay, nothing's wrong with pawn shops. But you go into Ender's like, what's wrong with pawn shops? Nothing is wrong with pawn shops. But you go into a goddamn pawn shop and you know what you're getting. You're getting used shit. It's okay. You go into a store, you know, it's like going into an Apple store and there's stickers on shit and it's dusty and it smells bad. That's not what you're shopping there for. Let's move on. So this game is Keymaster, right? And Sega makes the most successful version. But what's really interesting about this is and they're getting sued over this game now. But I have seen some of these. You can go online and see some of these are premium as fuck. Like they have the higher row of these things have the better prizes, right? So in this one, you've got iTunes cards, and then you go up to iPhones, and at the very top, the hardest one, you've got like literal iPads, okay? The one I saw online yesterday, and I'm not a big tennis shoe guy or whatever, but they had like the top of the line, I guess they're called, is Yeezys the middle or the top? They had like fucking custom tennis shoes on this shit. So they've got really nice prizes in this stuff, okay? And so what it is, if you're watching, you control the left and the right, and then you control the up, and then you hit the button when you think your key is lined up. And when you hit the button, it has to go in cleanly and insert itself in. This guy's going for the iPad, but you'll see, boom, he gets stuck there, right? So he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. And so what it turns out is Sega's being sued for $5 million class action lawsuit because they're basically saying that the tennis shoe, fuck you, Timmy Clark, you piece of shit troll, fuck off. Fuck off. Yeah, they're tennis shoes, bitch. I'm a goddamn grown-ass man. I don't give a fuck about sneakers. I don't give a fuck about that. Fuck you. Yeah, I feel good about that, baby. Yeah. Listen to me. Listen to me. The point of this, though, is it's like, look, man, this is, you can't do this. What this is that the Keymaster game, no matter how good, quote, good you are at this game, if it turns out, it has a payout timer. It says, look, if we want to give away an iPad a week, that payout timer is only going to hit once a week. So you have to get the key in the hole at the right time, or we're going to fudge it so you can't basically get it in the fucking hole. So it'll work, but they'll fuck with it as it goes through the keyhole to make sure you don't get your prize. So I thought that was interesting in a bigger scheme, though. It's part of a bigger investigation. Not really, but still. Because it's also kind of coming on the heels of this story, which is a cheating scandal happening in Trackmania. Now, I don't play Trackmania. I know what it is. It's basically, it's a racing game, and there's a lot of premium put on records and sort of, leaderboards and all that shit. So I guess some of the biggest players, including like the biggest streamer of this game, some people did an investigation and determined that what he was using was some piece of code. I guess it's called Cheat Engine. And you can kind of see it here. This was his normal drive. But you can kind of see it's a little erratic. But he was doing these numbers, putting up numbers on the leaderboard that you just couldn't really explain. But nobody cared. He made a lot of money as a streamer, blah, blah, blah. Well, when you watch it here, they went back. See how it's kind of a little erratic? When you run it through the actual game with a readout to tell what's happening, it turns out he was playing it on a system that allowed him to slow the game down to 80% of the normal speed, right? And so now the company has gone in and said, okay, we have to fix this. And now Sega has gone in and said, well, we can't advertise this as a game of skill anymore. We have to advertise this as a game of luck. And it did get me thinking, though. It's like, because I talk to my kids and I talk to their friends about this shit, and I'm not going to get deep into psychology on this. It just fascinates me, the idea about why people cheat. Like, look at this motherfucker here. Look at this motherfucker. This streamer, it's like this guy has no problem waking up in the morning. This is the guy. His name is Nadio. He's like the big streamer, I think. He has no problem waking up in the morning and building a reputation and building a business, assuming he makes a lot of money on Twitch and whatnot, simply by cheating. right? Sega has no problem waking up in the morning and saying, this is our business model and we're going to cheat to make money. We're going to lie to people to make money. And I just wasn't raised like that. I don't understand it. I don't understand why people are like that. And I did a little research because I'm like, what makes somebody do that? And then you start to get a little sympathetic towards them, a little bit anyway, because you start to go, well, these are people who, you know, it's a dog-eat-dog world. If they can get away with it, they can take care of themselves. They can take care of their families. They can take care of their sick mom. I mean, you know, the world doesn't make itself available to people who aren't flying high. It's really fucking hard for a lot of people. And so, I don't condone it. I don't support it, but I at least maybe understand it a little better now, but it's still shit though. I mean, it's a privilege to have morals. That's the goddamn truth, I guess. I got a little money in the bank so I can have morals, but if I don't know who this guy is. His name is not, Nadeo is the developer, I guess. The guy's name is, where's the guy's name? Hugely popular Riolu is his name. Riolu is this guy, I guess. I mean, if you don't have any money, if you're struggling, maybe it becomes a much harder pill to swallow. I don't fucking know. Paul G says this guy has cheat all over his hittable face. Yeah, there you go. I thought Stadia followed the Game Pass model. Damn clickbait. It's not clickbait, Angel Perez. I'll talk about that at the end of the stream if you like. No. Game Pass has not come out and said, Game Pass has only said that we pay our developers case by case. So does some of them get paid based on engagement and some get lump sums? Maybe. I know a lot of them get lump sums. But what's similar between the two is that if Stadia's business model saying engagement is key is going to get poisoning the well of Game Pass, that's going to be a problem for Game Pass because I don't think it's going to work for gamers. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Anyway, there's your story. Okay, let's talk about the bigger story that people were asking about. This is about, I think this is about the reviewers, right? Okay, we're gonna start with NeoGAF, but this is gonna get into hello Upvote Bandit, good to see you, buddy. Sorry, fellas. Yeah, Darth Nugget says if I could cheat at a video game and it would feed and shelter me and my family, who otherwise was not, I'm cheating at the game. Yeah, I mean that's kind of the thing. It sucks though, but again, I think people who are on their high horse, morally speaking, like I said, being moral is a privilege. You got to deal with your basic needs first. But if you're then, you are pretty evil if you have your basic needs met. And you're still a dick. Okay, let's move the fuck on. So this is where all this started. I did see your comment upvote, but most of them were trying to be funny and surreal. And I'm like, well, that's not going to please anybody. So you either have to be trolly and funny, but if you're just trolly or you're trying to be funny, but it's not good trolling or it's not good funny, I don't read it. But you hit me with one that was just, oh, okay. You were just like, hi, Jaffe. I'm like, oh, okay. That's kind. So you got, come on, you got to know how to play the game, baby. Here, well, this is going to get to Colin's tweet from today and a number of things and the Psychonauts easy mode and all that. But this is where it started for me. There's a poll on NeoGAF. PS5 owners, have you used cards or hints yet? This is interesting because if you don't know, when you pause a game on PlayStation 5, these little activity cards come up. And what they will let you do, if you're going after a certain trophy, you can scroll through the trophies. And sometimes, depending on the trophy, like Sackboy's Big Adventure has a thing where it's like, oh, I want to kill 20 enemies in this area. Well, you'll be able to jump right to that area from the card, right? Or they have little sections that have like a light bulb that means like there's a video here that you can watch from the developer if you get stuck or whatever, right? So, it reminds me of one of those things like Backtouch or the fucking Move controller on PS3. It's like, a lot of these or the touchpad on the PS4. And I don't blame Sony for this. A lot of times you got to throw a bunch of shit at the wall. You don't know what people are going to use. I like this idea. And I have used it a little bit with trophy hunting on Dark Souls and Sackboy, but I don't really think about it all that much. It's cool, but it's not really on my radar. And so anyway, not inevitably, but clearly I'm not alone because, 48% of people said, yeah, I tried them at launch. And then everyone else is like, yeah, I don't really use them that much. A few people do, and then no, never was the majority, right? Most people are like, I've never used it. Okay. In fact, in the chat, you've got somebody saying, I didn't even know that was a thing, right? There's a card. Yeah. AR Game says there's a card or hint thing on PS5. I play mine daily. I had no idea. Wilkerson says that system seems pointless. I mean, it's not like if you're really going after trophies, it is a nice thing to be able to hit the PlayStation button and go, okay, here's like the 12 I have left. This one's 85%. This one's 75%. This says this level will take me. They do a good estimate. It's like this level will take me about 8 minutes to finish. I got to leave the house in 20 minutes. Fuck it out. I mean, if you are, there are situations in which you would absolutely use them. But they just haven't ingrained themselves into the day-to-day function of people. I'll get to these super chats and some of the GameStop comments in just a minute. I want to stay on this topic for the moment. Jarvie says, I use the cards, but the games I don't have hints. It seems only Sackboy has it. It may be one of those things that when you're making your game at the beginning, when I was working at Sony, it was even, I'll give you an example, even as recently as Drawn to Death, when they were doing, whenever there's a new tech initiative or systems initiative, they'll go to all the developers they can and say, we really want you to take advantage of this. And a lot of times you're like, oh, this is not going to work. It doesn't matter. So, but sometimes it does, right? But on the case of Drawn to Death, it was like the PS4 Pro and the PS4. And we just had to have something that said as a first party title that it dealt with PS4 Pro. It had some sexiness. And I think it was like our textures were a little better or something. It didn't affect the gameplay, but it was just something, right? And sometimes it's just busy work. So I could see people going like, at the launch of PS5, all the developers were really all in on making these cards and making these, hints. And QA was like, okay, we got to have 1,000 hints for this game. And now I can see people going, let's just ship the game. It's too much fucking work. Maybe we'll go back and do it in a patch or something. Furious says, when I was lost in Control, the videos and the cards helped where I otherwise would have had to scroll through a video. Right. The idea is good. And when you need it, it's absolutely good. There's nothing about the concept that is dumb. I just think it's more whether or not it's that it's not dumb, but it's not frequently desired, or whether it's not dumb, but it is frequently desired, but the way in which it presents itself to you needs to be much more clear and much more, like even right now, I still get confused between what things come up when I hold the PlayStation button down versus when I tap the PlayStation button, right? I mean, it's things like that. So they could maybe it's a UI issue and the thing could totally function. But this really gets into the issue of how easy should games be, right? So this came out the other day. I'm sure you've seen it. A lot of people have been talking about it. Psychonauts 2 Invincibility Toggle aims to ensure difficulty doesn't get in the way of play. Okay, so this is what Double Fine says about Psychonauts 2, which I think is coming out next month, right? All people should be able to enjoy games. All ages, all possible needs. It's an ongoing and important process for the industry, and in that, they have basically made the game that says... where did it go? I'll read it from here. It says, Double Fine's revealed that Psychonauts 2 will feature an invincibility toggle as it believes all people should be able to enjoy games. And then that's caused a number of people arguing about it back and forth. And they've even said that, look, if you beat the game on the lowest difficulty, it's still beating the game, and people have been upset, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So, I mean, that's kind of the thing. And then, so Colin tweets this out. This is it's all kind of it's all over the place, but it's related, right? So Colin Moriarty, who will be on the show Friday, we're going to be discussing a conversation he and Dustin on Sacred Symbols had regarding PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, sort of cross-gen creation of games like Spider-Man, of games like Horizon, God of War. He thinks it's really bad. I think it's actually good for games. We'll talk about that on Friday. But that'll be at 2 p.m. California time, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Colin says about this: if you can't or won't beat games on anything harder than easy, and you're reviewing them from that perspective and not from the perspective of the player who's average player, then your criticism is worthless. And this is based on this woman named Natalie, who I don't really know who she writes for. I looked her up, but I don't really... Computer Gaming World Games Writer of the Year. I don't know who she is, but basically her quote, and maybe she's locked her account, which really sucks. You should be able to have a bad take and not have people attack you. I mean, I don't agree with her, and I'm going to talk about it, but I'm not going to harass the person just because I don't agree with them. But she says, I have never played a game for review on anything but the easiest difficulty, and I never will. Now, in some ways, you should be celebrating this because she's honest. It's like, oh, I know when I read Natalie's reviews, because what do people usually say when they're talking about reviewers, right? They say, you know, you should find reviewers that you really like, and you should just listen to them. Fuck Metacritic. Well, and I don't know this woman's reviews. I could hate them. But ultimately, she's coming out and saying, look, if you like my reviews, if you follow what I'm about, here's something to know about me. I review games on easy. And if you like my reviews, that may be because you do the same, or you vibe with the same kind of shit I vibe with. I don't think her criticism is useless, unless, and I think Colin goes on to say, though, he does say, there's nothing wrong with playing on easy. I do think there's something wrong with reviewing games in basically invincibility mode, if not disclosed, right? So if you're not making it clear that that's then I agree with him. It's like, you don't go out and review Psychonauts 2 on invincibility mode and don't tell people that's how you experience it. I agree with Colin 100% there. But regardless, though, this is the shitstorm, right? You got this guy, Timur Hussein, who I think is what does he do? He's a journalist at managing editor at GameSpot. He says, I hate when From Software's games are cited in arguments against making games accessible or even easier. I think Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, to that end, is insulting. I think using those games, Souls, Bloodborne, etc., to that end is insulting to the games and the people that made them, and just shows a lack of understanding of what makes them special. He says, get a grip. Give every single From Software game in easy mode for all I care. If they want to do it, let them make it so anyone and everyone can play. I would encourage it. Those that argue otherwise are not real fans of those games or FromSoft, just gatekeepers. Now, this is where I take issue. This is where I take issue with this discussion or this argument, right? And I think most would agree that the developers should be able to make whatever the fuck they want. Okay, we have seen the From Software, I forget the director's name of Demon's Souls, but we have seen his opinion. His opinion says, look, man, I don't want to do that. I don't want to give you a, I don't want to give you guys an easy mode because I want everybody to be in the same level, blah, blah, blah. Okay, whether you agree or not is relevant. You have to support, you can't support Double Fine and not support From Software. You have to support the director's vision. You have to support the team's vision. Otherwise, at least stand there and say these things are not art, they're products, and, you know, a toaster needs to be able to be workable by everyone, right? If I buy a garage door opener, I want it to just be easy. And there's value in that. And that's a key value that all of them have to have no matter what else they do. Otherwise, it's a disingenuous take to suggest that these things are artistic and creative and expressions, and at the same time go, but I want it easy. If you ever played Demon's Souls, and I know a lot of you have, and I only played it recently, and I loved it. I'm terrible at it, but I loved it. What I'll say about that game is so much of that game at a design level is happening most games happen in your brain, but so much of it is planning and thinking and equipping and learning the patterns of the enemy and that sort of careful precision that goes into how you encounter every little group of enemies so you can basically progress and to get your souls back or whatever, right? Well, if you take that away, then what you really have is a very beautiful version of Golden Axe, okay? Which, if you don't know, Golden Axe was an arcade beat 'em up before, less complicated than Double Dragon, right? It basically is a really pretty game that if you play it on easy, you're going to get bored in 20 minutes and go, it's beautiful, but what's the big deal, right? Well, the developer should have the ability to say, if I make this on easy, it's going to hurt my game, and I'm not going to do it. Just like the developer, like Double Fine clearly thinks the puzzles, the storytelling, the level, these aren't idiots. Schaefer's not an idiot. He's directing that game. The guy's a fucking genius, right? The guy probably looks at it and says, if we take away the challenge, there's still enough meat on the bone. So let's do it because we expand the audience. The director of Demon's Souls looks at it and says, if we take away the challenge is the game, it hurts the game if you play it on easy mode, right? So the weird thing is to see journalists coming out, especially a managing editor coming out of one of the biggest sites on the planet, suggesting that, I mean, he said, you know, he doesn't care, but his opinion is one that indicates he looks at these things not really as, you know, expressions from the team or from a group of people on the team. And it's weird because other mediums have dealt with this, but other mediums have had journalists championing the artistic side, not the business side, right? If you remember this, it was called with Clean Flicks. And this was in Utah. This was in 2006. You remember this? They basically would take Hollywood movies and they would edit out the nudity and, you know, taking the Lord's name in vain. And I put the Lord in quotes because he's not real. It's a fantasy character. And they would edit out like the really offensive violent stuff. And then they would rent these movies to people. And James Cameron sued them. And I guess it was whoever released, was it Fox who released Titanic? Or Paramount, I think it was Fox. But whoever released Titanic sued them and they won. And they said, you can't do this. You just because you want Titanic without X, Y, and Z, that's not James Cameron's vision. That's not the product that Warner Brothers or Paramount or whoever has released called Titanic. And all the journalists were all over it, supporting the directors and saying this is ridiculous. And it's just a little strange to see this happening from journalists. Not the fact that this woman plays on easy. I have no problem with that. Like Colin says, as long as she identifies it, she's gold. I think that's a great angle for a reviewer. She's like, I love these story games. I love the action. But I'm not a hardcore gamer. I play on easy. If you're like me, I'm the reviewer for you. I think that's a wonderful angle. And I don't think, and I think I think it sucks that she's getting, I'm assuming she's getting a lot of shit. So she made her tweets private because here Colin is quoting Sophia Narwitz, who's quoting her. So there had to have been a time where her shit was available. And this looked like it was recently. So that sucks. But this guy, though, who basically is acting like he doesn't understand, that he's literally going after the fans, saying, I think using Souls, Bloodborne, and Sekiro to that end is insulting to the games. To that end, meaning that they're arguing the games should not be made more accessible or easier. To that end, it's insulting to the games and the people that made them, and it shows a lack of understanding of what makes them special. Again, look, I have bad takes 20 times a day, and that's on a good day. I don't have any ill will towards Timur Hussein. I don't know the guy. I'm sure he's a good human. But it is on this particular take. It's kind of like I say to my kids. They're like, are you mad at me or something? And I'll say, I'm not mad at you. Or do you still like me? And they don't ask that anymore. They went little. I said, I will always love you. I adore you more and more every day. I don't like your behavior right now, right? So Timur may be great. I'm not like, let's pile on this guy. I'm just saying that this particular behavior of Timur's, this take, is not a great one. In my personal opinion, I think it's a little weird. Okay. Interesting, though, about this, okay? Okay, so Valley Chip says, why not make games more accessible? Okay, why not allow you to go in and watch Schindler's List in color if you want? I'm going to watch Schindler's List, and I've rented it, and I want it in color, and I would like it to be edited out so I can watch it in 45 minutes, because I only have 45 minutes, and I want to make sure all the stuff with the Jews being killed, I don't want to see that. I know what happened. Cut that out too, right? Because ultimately, it's the difference between if you look at a video game as a toy or a product or a consumer good, or you look at it as an expression, which the Supreme Court has already ruled, at least in America, that it is an artistic expression. That's why. And there are plenty of companies that look at it the first way. And they will make games as services. I don't mean like games as a service, but they will make it more as a consumer product, and they will put accessibility at a premium. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there are companies like Double Fine, at least with this particular game with Psychonauts, that say our vision does not get hurt enough or at all if we put in invincibility mode. And that's great. But I think it's disingenuous, frankly, to the argument that video games are art, to say that, yeah, they're art, but you need to add an easy mode because it's too hard for a lot of people. Well, not if the developer doesn't want one, because they think it's going to harm the overall vision of the title. But here's what's really interesting. Ultimately, the question becomes, this is one of those things that's going to be like arguing about what is the best way to hook your horse up to your wagon. This is a problem that's going to get solved simply by becoming obsolete, right? And here's why. Valley says, are games that are more accessible make more money? Usually, yes. But again, not always. And again, if your only goal is money, there are plenty of companies that make games like that. But I struggle to wonder why more people think that they shouldn't support the essence of this shit, of what the developer wants. Okay. So Bradley says, I do like seeing more of a push for accessibility. On second playthrough, I like rampaging through a game. Yeah, I get it. And then support those games, right? Right. How about we don't put subtitles on foreign language films next? Again, Matt DeMarco, I mean, if that's the vision, right? I mean, it's either art or it's not art, but you can't have it both ways. Okay. And yes, I thought Twisted Metal Black was too hard. It was not meant to be that hard. This is going to go away anyway, because there's a really interesting article in Forbes that talks about, it kind of reminds me of Spielberg when he made Minority Report. He went out and he spoke with a number of futurists, and he says, look, I want you guys to work with me and work with the writers of Minority Report to make this world of Minority Report really accurate is within reason of what the future is going to look like. And they got a lot of things already right, like, targeted ads and all kinds of stuff. Well, this is a similar article about the future of gaming. They went to sort of industry professors and educators and said, what's going to happen? Well, one of the big things that is coming is procedural game development. Now, right now, it's in they're citing games like Terraria and stuff, like procedural generated levels. But eventually, you are going to get to a point where it is like the holodeck, right? Where it is basically, there is no easy for me and hard for you. It's the vision of the game director is, so if the vision of Demon Souls is, I want everyone to feel so challenged that they want to give up, but not quite enough that they do give up, and then have that sense of elation that comes from pushing through something hard. Well, where it's going to go ultimately is that vision of the team or the director or what have you, or the publisher or whatever, is going to basically be what everyone experiences. And the AI is going to sort of using machine learning and taking in data from you and other games you've played and whatever, it's going to craft with a number of variables or a number of elements in the game, enemy, hit points, health, all this shit. It's going to try its best to craft the experience for every single individual, an identical experience, but it gets to it a different way numerically. Ultimately, that's sort of where it's going to go. And that's where it should ultimately go. But then you kind of get into a really weird question, right? Which is, at that point, when you do start breaking this shit down to that level, well, Obzar says self-adapting difficulties are iffy for me. Why? Maybe right now, we've seen some games try it. Devil May Cry tries it. There was the director mode in Left 4 Dead. But I'm talking, we're talking 20 years in the future. We're talking 100 years in the future. 100 years in the future, the game's going to be writing itself based on what the team wants. But then you're into the holodeck, maybe a little further than that. Right. No. So Tristan says, I played RE7 last week. Had a spot I was stuck in, died like 8 times in a row. Never for a second thought about dropping the difficulty. I just worked on ways to improve my approach. Right. But ultimately, though, the point is that, like, you don't go into a movie. What I think everybody wants is they want to go into Resident Evil 7 and have a great experience. And they want to have the experience the developer, the director, what have you, signed up for. And if the director wants you to get stuck in this area until you get frustrated enough to quit, but not quite enough to quit, and you push through it, everybody should have that experience. But what I think is shitty is the fact that you have so few people finishing games because it's just, I get bored or it gets hard because I'm not making progress fast enough. That's a problem that can be solved and will be solved by AI eventually. Because it's a really ridiculous concept to ask a game developer to just magically know where everyone's sweet spot is. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. But anyway, the bigger point though, and this is getting into sort of territory that is not really what we talk about that much on this show, although I am going to bring on a guy who's trying to make the holodeck pretty soon for an interview. He's fucking really smart guy. We're going to talk about this stuff. But ultimately, though, when you really think about it, all of these decisions are being made for some. There's an article about sort of why video games are fun, right? And it talks about endorphins, oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin. And basically, you can get these same chemicals through cocaine, amphetamines, cocaine. You can get them through LSD. You can get them through ecstasy. The idea of, there is some point in the future, I think, and this is beyond games at this point, but it's like we play games and games get tuned and the AI is going to come tune the game so everybody gets the dopamine, serotonin, not oxycontin, what's it called? The ecstasy thing, not oxycontin, oxytocin. We're ultimately doing that to get that feeling. We're just these meat bags of chemicals, right? Well, at some point in the future, it's just going to be, I mean, everything is drugs. Obzar says games are drugs confirmed. And at some point in the future, it's going to be just plug in. Just plug in and feel good. Because every single thing you do is meant to you got to accept that at some point in your life. And everything you do, everybody you love, every game you play, every job you go after and succeed in, all that are ways to get the chemicals dripping. That's it. So you may as well, I know it's different than Oxycontin. I know. You may as well eventually 1,000 years from now, just let's build a society around just fucking plug in. I mean, if that's all we are is meat bags in search of chemical highs, why would we not chase after the easiest way to get there? It doesn't make any sense. Jaffe says, Rob, you're a dev, but you rarely finish games, even the top tier bangers. If humans can't work out ourselves, then can machines realistically? Well, Rob, actually, it's interesting because like I did finish Desperados the other day. Okay, and I will do a review on Desperados pretty soon. But I thought about this because you're right. I rarely finish games, okay? But a lot of it, and I hate to sound, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. I rarely finish games because most games are padded and are not well paced, right? And they do that for business reasons. Like somebody earlier was talking about, shouldn't we just focus on the art? And it's like, yeah, but you can't extract that, right? And everybody's idea of what's interesting is different. Everybody has a different threshold, which is why AI is going to solve this as well. But anyway, so I look at that game and I say there are things that game does to keep you engaged. They do a lot of quality of life stuff. They let you speed up time. They let you reload really quickly. There are multiple ways to solve things that don't feel like cheats. It just feels like you had a really cool idea. They put a premium on making sure that every level introduces a meaningful enough mechanic or way to use a mechanic that you haven't used in the past, or a way to combine mechanics you haven't done in the past that feels fresh and keeps you going. That game, I would be stunned if that game they did not sit down, or the director or the lead designer didn't sit down with himself with a pad of paper and say, this is one of my goals. I want to try to increase engagement and increase completion rate of this game. Because there are so many choices that are obviously conscious. They don't happen by accident. That unless it was just a happy accident that is incredibly rare, all those choices come together to create a game that you want to stick through to the end. And so I'm telling you, you know, that's, I don't not finish. I mean, you know, a lot of people like to come at me on the internet. You don't finish games. You're not a real gamer. Fuck you. I don't give a fuck what you think about that. But what I'll tell you is, here's how much I'm a real gamer and those people are not real gamers. I'm a real enough gamer that I love games and respect games enough to call them out on their bullshit. Okay, a real gamer is not somebody who you know, soldiers through a game that has a 4-hour opening that's boring as fuck. A real gamer, in my opinion, again, it's a stupid term, but a real gamer, in my opinion, is not somebody who soldiers through and finishes a 100-hour game when they were bored at hour 20. Okay? That's horseshit. Right? But a lot of gamers, well, I fucking finished it. Were you engaged the whole time? If you weren't, that's on you, man. That's you're willing to put up with shit. I'm not. That doesn't, you know. Eternal says it takes away the human element from developers. What does? Sod, I am continuing to play Nier Automata. I don't know. You're saying it requires multiple playthroughs. I'll play it till I get bored of it, and then I'm done. And we'll see how far that takes me. Let me bring in these calls real quick and see what you guys have to say. I have a dentist appointment today, so I got to bolt in about 15 minutes, but I will go through these calls, which I appreciate you guys waiting. We have Patch has been waiting for a while. Patch, it's Jaffe. How you doing, sir? What's going on?
Hey.
What's up? Hello. How are you, sir?
Pretty good. Are you Jaffe, or am I confused because I'm listening to like you talk on one thing and something, and whoever this is on another?
I have no idea what question you just asked me. You were calling into this show called Gabbin' and Games.
Oh, okay. So no, I know what I'm sorry. I think I'm listening to you on
I don't.
YouTube.
Yeah. Turn down your YouTube and let's talk. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah. Oh, hey, I just wanted to drop in for the difficulty discussion.
All right, go.
Okay, yeah, sure. I don't know if I'm on right now, but
you're on.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with a lot of what you said. One thing I do want to bring up is people just used to go online and look at guides and cheats. And to be honest, I think it's way preferable for someone to turn on some sort of thing which just tells them what to do than to go online and like look at a guide. Because, you know, you're digging around, you probably spoil yourself a bunch of stuff trying to find off the one bit which solves the puzzle or whatever, and you accidentally find out what the final boss is or something like that. I'm generally, I prefer harder stuff, but, I admit, you play some puzzle game, get stuck on a puzzle, and you go online, you look for a guide, and holy shit, I accidentally ruined the ending for myself. So, right, I defend it for that reason.
But everybody has their barometer, and that's why I'm saying it really is a very odd form of expression and form of art and form of creation that we've never really had, I don't believe, to tackle before, which is, sure, everybody has a different threshold in a movie of when they get bored, but on the whole, you can do a screening and get a consistent read of like, you know what, most people think the movie is too long, let's do some cutting or whatever. But with video games, there's like literally a guy in the chat, Sinzero, who says, I guess Breath of the Wild is over padded and not a real game. I shouldn't grind that Master Sword. They should just give it to me. And my answer to that is no, but he's missing the point, which is there are certain games, and Nintendo does it brilliantly, where Nintendo says, look, we make this game so that you can come in and play it casually, but there's enough meat on the bone that if you want to keep playing it and grind and do stuff, you can also do that. But that's the vision of the game. The vision of the game is to allow the player to express himself and to enjoy the experience, regardless of where they sit on the scale of casual to hardcore. But ultimately, though, I mean, it really is an impossible problem that you're going to have AI solve, because short of the game developer coming to your house and going, okay, do you like this? Is this too hard? Is this too, there's no other way to solve it. And I think that's it. We're going to look back in 100 years and go, can you believe we were just trying to muddle our way through this and guess?
Can I bring up something here with that bit? Because I think the problem we right now have is like difficulty settings. Because so many games have all these difficulties, and I don't know what one is any good. Like you play a shooter, and I'm like, I'm gonna go on hard, and then suddenly I find out I'm shooting a guy multiple times in the head, and he's not dying. And to me, the problem isn't that it's difficult; it's just that it's not that fun to shoot a guy repeatedly in the head.
Right, because ultimately, think about how hard it is to make a game and how long it takes. And that is not all, of course, but the vast majority of games, their difficulty, it's exactly what you said. It's the designers are in charge of coming up with what easy mode looks like and what hard mode looks like. And depending on how well they've planned, there are a number of knobs they can tune. Hit points, weapon damage, frequency of respawn, checkpoint frequency, if there are checkpoints at all. There's not a lot of language to use. And ultimately, if the normal game is made to express the vision of the team, that's why I think putting an easy mode in Demon's Souls would be a nightmare. Not because because it's not what the game is. It's meant to be a real challenge.
Yeah, I think that's completely correct with Demon's Souls. I feel like with quite a lot of games, like one thing I see people bring up when they bring up like the idea of an easy mode in Demon's Souls is the idea that like journalists will give it better scores, and I'm like, that's stupid. Like I think if lots of people played Demon's Souls on like an easy setting, they would just find it to be a repetitive brawl, and they'd be like, I don't know, nice visuals are a 6 out of 10.
Right. I think so.
Is learning.
I think you're right. All right, man. Thank you for the call. Where are you calling from? Where are you?
Oh, I'm over in the UK in Stroud right now.
Oh, I'm so glad you were able to be up and watch the show live. I'm going to try to start doing. I'm going to start doing it at 1:00 California time.
Okay, now, nice to speak to you, man.
All right, good to talk to you as well. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, buddy.
Okay, bye, man.
All right, this is P Turtle. Oh my Lord, it's P Turtle. P Turtle is back. I don't have a lot of time today, Turtle. So get right to it. What's up, buddy?
Oh man, I had like 3 things I wanted to talk about.
I will be streaming later in the week, but I don't have a lot of time. So pick the most important one and let's go. I got to go to the dentist today.
Oh shoot! All right. Well, I just got an Xbox Series X.
Good for you. It's great. What do you think?
It's all right, but I got to tell you, man, and I'm a bit worried about your head these days because.
How come? What's wrong with my head, sir?
Talking about, I mean, not your actual head, but you seemed a few years ago to actually be like, yeah, these new games suck. They're not that good. But now you're saying like God of War is good. Mm-hmm. Now you're saying Last of Us 2 is good.
Yeah.
But you always talk about you left the industry because you couldn't really crack that code in how to make a,
right,
I don't know, like a true story within a game.
Correct.
But these games are basically just better production, better graphical versions of what I grew up on with PlayStation 2.
100%.
So then why do you keep talking good about these games? We need to eliminate those kind of games. They suck.
That's two different things, though, right? So for me to say I left the industry because I did all I felt I could do with my talent to try to make basically my version of the holodeck, and I couldn't do anymore. Mm-hmm. And I agree with exactly what you're saying, which is if you play the new God of War, if you play Last of Us, whatever, there's still cutscene gameplay, and there should be much more premium put on game design and interactivity. Right. And it's one of the reasons I champion indie games, because that's where you see that shit. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to play God of War or Last of Us and go, that was really good. I don't want to. Really? I don't want to make a game like that for a number of reasons, but I enjoyed it. I'm not going to lie about it.
But you don't think it's problematic that is what is looked at as the standard in gaming today?
It's not. It's not looked at as that's.
Those games are looked at as the standard.
No, they're not. By whom?
Absolutely.
Who are you talking about? Who looks at them as the standard?
I think a majority of gamers right now, because it seems that PlayStation is the hottest system out right now, and it's the biggest out of the 3.
But I think this is the problem. Yeah, you're wrong. So it's certainly the bit. Well, I think you can argue with Switch, but I think the problem is you're in an echo chamber, right? Which is, yes, if you're talking about the people who post on NeoGAF, if you're talking about the people who write for IGN, you're absolutely right.
The mainstream.
That's not the mainstream. The main
That is the mainstream.
It is not. The mainstream are the people who are playing Fortnite, who are playing Fall Guys, who are playing Among Us, who are playing Madden, who are playing Call of Duty.
Oh, no, then you're right. I'm talking about, I guess, the quote-unquote hardcore gamer.
The hardcore gamer, I take issue with, and they don't like me as much as they used to.
But I think the hardcore gamer is ruining games.
Let me tell you
something.
I think it's a good point. I think it's a good point.
I have less respect for the hardcore gamers that champion God of War and Last of Us than something like Fortnite. Listen, I played Fortnite a few times with my nephew. It's not bad. It's not a bad game.
It's a great game. I don't like it. It's too hard for me, but it's good.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong. But the thing that I respect about it is it has the whole metaverse aspect, and it doesn't take control away from you.
That's right.
One thing I want to say is when you talk about Last of Us 2, what does everybody talk about when it comes to that game? They talk about the cutscene with Joel dying, right? That shouldn't be what you talk about when you're talking about a video game.
I don't think you're wrong. I didn't like The Last of Us 1. I really loved The Last of Us 2, and it's not because
I thought 1 was good but overrated. I didn't play 2.
Okay, it's not because the cutscenes. The story is really good. I enjoy it for what it is, but I enjoy it because of the combat. I enjoy it because of the ability to solve combat scenarios in multiple ways. The characters move really fluidly. The guns feel really good. The AI is really good.
But the gameplay didn't really advance much from the first game. It didn't.
It did in the sense that the reason I got bored of the first game is I got about 6 hours in and it was like every section felt too similar to the previous section. And this game feels that they do a better job of pacing out and doling out the moment to moment or the sequence to sequence scenarios. And so it feels like every time it's enough, it's like whether it's a new enemy or a new weapon or a new scenario in which to fight that enemy that makes things different. It keeps me engaged. But call back next time because I want to get your other 2 points. I always love talking to you.
God damn, I didn't even get to the main point, but whatever. I'll call back.
You call back. I got to get my teeth staying in my head, baby. This is Ricardo Estevez. Ricardo, what's up, baby? What's going on? Ricardo.
I'm sorry, I was listening in YouTube.
I don't need your life story, Ricardo. Go. What's up, buddy?
It's so good, man.
It probably is. Go.
Yeah, lost. Anyway, I just want to say I agree with you regarding the difficulty in video games. I think it's awesome in games that justify it. I don't think it's necessary in every game, especially if the people making it think it's important for it.
Right.
So, yeah. So I wanted to ask you another thing. What do you think about replaying games? It's something I discuss this with friends a lot. They usually refuse to replay games, and I replay games all the time. I'm not sure why, but perhaps
give me an example of a game you've replayed recently.
Mass Effect.
Okay.
Replay Demon Souls.
Okay, so you're not just
lots of games.
You're not just talking about evergreen multiplayer games. You're talking about single player experiences. No. Okay.
Yes.
I think it's great if you want to replay games, but I never do. I don't know of a time other than for research that I've ever gone back to a single player game or nostalgia and I remember Super Star Wars. I'll play that for 20 minutes and never go back to it again. I absolutely do not replay games. A lot of it is, I think, a lot of it is, in my opinion, that so many games rely on the technology. Here's what I'll say. If you're talking about indie games and arcade games of yore, it's a little different. I'll go back and play Miss Pac-Man. I'll go back and play Black Widow. I'll go back and have a desire to play Hearthstone. Just like I'll go back and play Uno with my kids.
I'm playing Hearthstone right now,
right.
And I'm all over addicted again.
I should see if they've fixed the balance. But anyway, the point is that when the games come from a more pure mechanics place, I can absolutely see, I'll give you a great example. Severed Steel, I'll probably play through the beta or the alpha, whatever it is right now, probably 2 more times before the final comes out. Because I enjoy the moment to moment.
You're replaying it exactly. You're replaying it
because
purely for
the mechanics.
For
because it feels good. Whatever's happening in my brain, I'm enjoying, and I want more of that. But most games in the console space are not that. Most games these days in the console space are narrative, they're production value heavy, and once you know the story, and once the production value today, which is mind-blowing, is tomorrow's bargain bin game, those two things no longer draw you into the experience. And so what's drawing you in? It's rare. Like Dead Space 2 is the rare example, in my opinion, of a game that I came to fresh a year ago that was already 10 years old, but the moment-to-moment gameplay was so well done that even though it looked antiquated and the story was nothing to write home about, I adored that game, right? So I think a lot of what you're saying, or a lot of the disconnect where a lot of people don't replay games, has more to do with the fact that the medium itself has tried to become movies. And, kind of like what P Turtle was just saying, they've been rewarded in a lot of ways, at least a certain segment, for trying to be movies. But in that, it's actually harmed a lot of the quality of the medium, or it's created a different kind of medium that ultimately isn't as evergreen as any other entertainment medium, because it's built on the shaky foundation of production value and storytelling that's probably more often than not better in a movie. So I think when you throw in the fact that is budget heavy and the pie's not growing like we talked about earlier, it just eats itself. So, all right, Ricardo, I'll talk to you soon, buddy. I'm sorry to cut it short. I got to run.
Sure, man.
Thanks, bud. All right, let me bring in Teddy. Teddy, are you there, sir? Is that a Bobby Lashley icon? You got yourself a Bobby Lashley icon there, sir? I don't know. Teddy, can you hear me? Let me put myself into your room. Maybe that'll work better. Teddy, can you hear me, bud? Can you hear me, Teddy? Techno, can you hear me? Who can hear me in the chat? There's Teddy. What's up, buddy? Teddy, it looks like you're not talking, bud. You're not muted. I'm not seeing a green. Techno, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
All right, what's up, bud?
What's good?
Not much.
What?
Let's go. What do you want to talk about, sir?
Oh wait, you're streaming? I had no idea.
Wow, you're just randomly calling me?
Yeah.
Well, what would you like to talk about? You're on the show.
Oh damn. Okay.
What's happening in your life, sir?
Nothing much. Just
you ever fucked a prostitute?
Oh, what the hell? No.
You ever want to?
No.
Have you ever eaten a grilled cheese sandwich?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what happens when I don't prepare for interviews, Teddy. I got nothing for you, or Techno. All right, buddy. Well, call back anytime. We'll talk to you soon, sir.
All right. See ya.
All right, man. All right, let me try Teddy one more time. Teddy, are you there? Come on, Teddy. All right, fellas. Well, there you go. That's the show. Let me just tell you something. Teddy, call back next time, buddy. Friday, Colin Moriarty, the great Colin Moriarty. I don't know if he's bringing Dustin on as well. He's obviously more than welcome to, but him and Dustin had a great conversation, which I didn't agree with, but I found fascinating, on Sacred Symbols a couple weeks ago, about PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 cross-gen creation, and they are opposed to it. I actually think it's pretty fucking good. And we're going to talk about why. It's not really a debate, because I respect Colin's opinion, and he's a good guy to talk to. And ultimately, he and I may disagree, or I may come around to his point. But I currently, at the moment, don't agree with what they were talking about. So he'll be on Friday. That'll be the show for Friday. A discussion with Colin and myself, maybe Dustin, I don't know. We will be taking calls. That will be 2 o'clock California time, 5 o'clock his time. Tomorrow, I will probably game stream, but I'm not entirely sure yet. Ricardo, yes, thank you. It's just a dentist. I haven't been to the dentist since the pandemic started, so it's just a checkup. But, yeah, you never fucking know. Okay, Teddy, I can try one more time before I let you go. Teddy, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, turn down your computer. You're the last call of the day.
Great.
You're the last call of the day. Let's go.
Cool, thanks. So I was going to ask...
Is that Bobby Lashley? Is that Bobby Lashley from the WWE?
Yeah, that's Bobby Lashley.
That's awesome. You know what's weird about him is I saw him the other night, and again, I don't follow wrestling as much as like Hogwash or people like you guys do, but wasn't Lashley like Brock Lesnar for a while in that he never spoke? But now he's like, he's like got a character and he's talking and all this shit. But I don't think I've ever heard him speak until recently. Is that a new development, or I just missed something?
He's been doing it for a couple of years. He went to a couple of other promotions like Impact and stuff. So yeah, he's been doing it for a while. But yeah, very similar to Brock Lesnar with the MMA background and all that.
Okay, all right, interesting. All right, so what's up, man? What do you want to talk about?
So as you were talking about before, in terms of difficulty levels and in terms of the amount of people that are finishing games and whatnot, while the whole COVID thing's been going on, I've been trying to get through a lot of my games when I've been stuck at home and whatnot. And I've been seeing, the Steam achievements where, you get the achievement when you finish the game and it says, 20% of players have this or whatever. And for a lot of the games, it's very low. A lot of them have been 15 to 20%.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, what are your thoughts about that in terms of, obviously, your time with Sony? Is there ever been a directive for you guys to put more attention on the opening hours of the game for that kind of a reason?
No, but I always had that. There's a video up on my channel right now called something like the things God of War ripped off from movies. God of War was inspired by the opening of Indiana Jones movies, which was inspired by the openings of James Bond movies, which was immediately you're thrust in to the action, because I hate boring openings. But that was because of sort of my own desires and how I wanted to direct a game. I've never heard Sony come down from on high and say, we need this, but I absolutely think that, let's put it this way. I had a bit of a spat on Twitter the other day about this when someone was talking about a game that takes a good long time to get going. The idea that, I can't think of any other mediums that consistently tell their audience, their paying customers, to wait hours before the thing gets good. And most mediums, if you look at movies bust their ass to make sure the first 10 minutes of a screenplay is amazing. And and they want no fat on the bones of that fucking thing. Now, part of it is a business model, because the shorter a movie is, the more they can show it in the theater every day. But part of it is also they have more discipline. And in games, it's just like, my God, some of these games take forever to get engaging, and I simply don't understand it. So, but no, it was never a Sony directive.
Okay. That's interesting. I completely agree, because I played Assassin's Creed Odyssey maybe like 6 months ago, and I think I ended up putting in 100 hours or something. And, it's one of those experiences where you think it could have been like 30 hours long and you probably would have gotten a more satisfying experience. So, do you think that's also a problem with the industry these days, where it seems like the sequels to every game get longer than the game that preceded them? That doesn't really make sense if people aren't finishing the games.
Well, it makes total sense, because it's terrible, but it makes total sense. It's a terrible thing. You don't see it in indie games. You don't see it when the budgets are less, but when the games cost more money, the need to buy a game and not sell it back to GameStop, the need to have great reviews, which are like, wow, this game will last 100 hours. Oh my God. There is and the cost is pretty high on these games to purchase. And so you end up looking at it more as a product than a piece of entertainment. And in that, I understand why they do it, but it absolutely comes at the expense of the quality of the title. Think about that. The fact that game, I can't hear many people who played Assassin's Creed Valhalla say one of the first two things they'll say, even if they loved it, is, my God, that game was long. It was too long for its own good. They say the same thing about The Last of Us Part 2. It's like, it's really good, but my God, it goes on for too fucking long. Same thing with Days Gone, right? I think, part of it is a need to pad out the game for the value, but it ends up actually hurting the actual value. And part of it is it's just really hard to tell how long people are going to take. But that's what I would say. All right, Teddy, thanks for hanging in there with the call, and I'll talk to you soon, buddy. Thanks, man.
Sure, thanks.
All right. Let me get these last super chats. Thank you guys very much for your generosity. Jarvie Rock says, I think Last of Us Part 2 was an improvement of gameplay. I agree. The AI was advanced and the game gives you options. There are a lot of accessibility options in that game. The AI is really good. The guns feel better. And there just seems to be more variety in the moment-to-moment gameplay. I agree. Thank you, Jarvie. Jarvie again comes through. He says, Javi, reviewers have the right to play on easy or not finish a game and still give their opinion. I believe developers should do what they want. I agree. But I think as long as that is expressed in the review, what I think people take issue with is if a professional reviewer that you pay for, either with your clicks, your time, your money, whatever, literally is like, I'm giving this game an 8 out of 10 or a 2 out of 10 or whatever. It's too hard and it's boring. And part of the review could be, this game was so bad or so offensive or so boring that I chose to not finish it. I'm down with that. Totally down with that. But you have to disclose it, is all I'm saying. That's my issue with it. And I think most people, if they disclose it, would not have an issue. Ratchet, thank you, buddy. Ratchet from the UK says, super chat, thank you, sir. He says, cheating is still cheating. If you broke the rules when you agree to following them, then you have no sympathy for us because that's the deal. You play well, entertain, and I'll give you my time. I don't disagree. I don't like cheating. I'm just saying that cheating, it's like Jean Valjean and Les Mis, right? You steal the loaf of bread to feed your kid, right? There's a point where cheating is a necessity in a dog-eat-dog capitalist society. But most people aren't at that point. Then I take issue with it. But if you're like, look, my kid needs medicine or he's going to get really sick and maybe worse. If I cheat at this esport and I can get away with it, I don't like it. I don't condone it. I'm just saying I understand it. But if you've got a roof over your head and your family's safe, and you cheat, I take issue. But I also have to say, the fact of the matter is, I talk to my kids about this. You're coming up in a world where all these fuckers cheat. The politicians cheat. The people who own the businesses cheat. They don't pay taxes. They don't do this. They don't do that. There is a valid argument to be made that, yes, cheating is bad. Lying is bad. But you're a little drop in an ocean of Bobby Kodak's and Jeff Bezos's and Richard Branson's and all these other people. And ultimately, if they're stacking the deck against you, they control the politicians, they control the corporations, they control all this shit, and you have to cheat to get by so you can basically get a little bit more because they're taking more and more and more. I don't like it, but I understand it. But I have the privilege of having some money in the bank. So I have money in the bank so I can sit in my high horse and say that's bad. And it is bad. But I've said this before. When I worked at Sony and I had just started working at Sony, I was a producer. It's terrible to say, but this was back when it was Sony ImageSoft. I would literally we could take all the games home from the library. This is true. I did this. And I took the games home, and after a while I was like, nobody's asking about these games. Like, it was not many people took them home. And there was a store around the corner and I could sell. It's horrible to admit it. I didn't do it all the time, but when I was really hard for money, because I didn't get paid a lot back then, I would take some of these games from Sony and I would go in and I would sell them. And I would make enough money to hit my rent or, take a girl out or whatever it was I was doing. And I didn't have to call home and ask my dad for it, right? I mean, that's the truth. So I agree cheating's bad, but I also agree that the more privileged you are, the easier it is to sort of, complain about it, basically. Jason says, nobody has or uses Stadia. Many people have Game Pass. Terrible video idea. Do better. You're a moron, Jason. I appreciate your ducats. Thank you so much. But that's not what this is about. That's not what it's about. That's not what the conversation was about, sir. The conversation was about Stadia is on the front lines right now of trying to monetize their subscription service in a way that a lot of people are afraid Game Pass will eventually have to do, which is paying by engagement. And all I'm saying is, if Game Pass comes to the same conclusion eventually, and they start telling their developers that we're paying you by engagement, that is going to absolutely have an effect on the quality, not even the quality, but the types of games that get created. That's all I'm fucking saying, okay? And that means you're just a fucking moron. But I'll take your fucking money. Thank you, sir. All right, there you go. I'm off to the dentist, fellas. I'll be streaming games today or tomorrow, and then Colin is here. Colin Moriarty is here. We're debating PS4, PS5 cross-gen. He is against it. I am for it. And I don't know. We'll fucking see if I convince you. But it's going to be one of those discussions where it's like, depending on what your value, we're both right. Okay, so we'll talk about it. But anyway, be safe, be well. Rob, thank you so much. Rathy, thank you so much. Bukaki, thank you so much for modding. I'll try to be doing these earlier in the day because I know we'll get some of the UK folks on. I appreciate you guys from overseas coming in.